Alright, Diablo players, let's check it out. Season 8 for Diablo 4, we're going to be able to get access to boss powers. So remember Lilith's Blood Waves? Well, you're going to be able to actually access that as a brand new power in Season 8's PTR, which is actually coming out next week. So I'm very excited to show you guys everything and kind of summarize all the stuff that was in their like 2-hour presentation here. So there is going to be a new seasonal mechanic. I'm going to show you guys like gameplay here first, and then I'm going to go over kind of just like some factual notes and everything that you again want to know. So as far as the new incursions that happen, basically you go to an area on the map and then they can activate and you're going to be able to engage in some sort of boss fight, and there are brand new pinnacle bosses. These aren't just copy and pasted from the campaign, they're going to be basically reworked, so hopefully these will be quite challenging. You can see there's Belial, that is the new ultimate mega endgame boss. So there is a new form of endgame progression which I'll show you guys, but there's a lot of stuff to go ahead and go over. Again, this was basically taken from a 2-hour stream and I'm here to summarize everything. So first off, there are 3 brand new bosses. The mega boss, which is on the right side, which is Belial, is going to be one of the best things to actually kill in the game, and I'll go ahead and actually explain why. So again, this was in their Campfire chat. I'm here to summarize basically everything. So for starters over here, they mentioned that there's not going to be any mid-season balance updates. They're going to basically hammer things on really fast as far as like the first few weeks go. That way, if there's anything that's super OP or broken, like let's say for example, if you guys remember the Spiritborn build that I dropped that cleared a pit 150, they nerfed that literally the next day that I dropped the gameplay for it. But there's other things like Blood Wave, which were definitely way overtuned, and they were like okay with Blood Wave, and they're also okay with Cataclysm, but those are going to be getting nerfed next season, and it's because there's a cap now on a lot of the ultimates. But as far as it goes, this way what you're able to do is if there's a build and it lasts the first few weeks, then maybe you're going to be good to go. You don't have to worry about getting nerfed in the middle of the season. However, it can still happen in the very beginning of the new season, so just take any like super OP build in the very first few weeks with a grain of salt in Season 8. They also mentioned that they're going to slow down the leveling, so we're going to have a much slower game. So they showed off in season, well, it says Season 6 over here. It says on average it was like 15 to 17 hours for leveling up, and then in Season 7 we basically doubled it. So they're going to go back. So leveling up is going to be mega nerfed, so basically like double the amount of time if we're looking at this. Now if you're a good player, you're probably going to still reach it faster, but yeah, it's going to be pretty mega nerfed. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with the progression, how it kind of feels. But I kind of like the slower progression. When I first got into Diablo 4, that was okay, but nowadays I think a lot of people want to play a lot of different builds. So let me know guys how you feel about this. If we nerf the leveling by basically 50%, right, that's a pretty big amount, because they were just kind of showing off how fast it was to level. And I think it has to do with specifically on Season 7 the powers that we get, the Witchcraft powers, where it's specifically that like poison one that just does the AoE. You could like basically walk through all the content if you're leveling up an alt account, which I think is good because that encourages people to play on alts a little bit more. But anyways, the next thing that is going to be pretty big is they are nerfing legendary drops. So basically we're getting less loot and more XP. Even though some people may see this as like a bad thing, some people may see this as a good thing. I was generally kind of surprised with how many legendaries were just shooting out. If you did any of the root holds in the end game, there's like too much loot, but it's not valuable. So they didn't really mention anything in regards to making it more valuable, because I think less loot at the end game is actually better if it's better quality. Hopefully that kind of makes some sense. But they didn't mention that like we're going to make the quality of the loot better. They're just like nerfing loot. So here's what they said over here. So players were getting about a legendary every 3 to 4 minutes within an hour of playing, and they don't like the feeling of legendary items quality being the only quality so early. But it doesn't really make sense with what they said. So what they're doing is they're going to make it so there's less legendaries. Magic items will have up to 2 affixes, and rare items can have up to 3, so you can still kind of use those, but these items are still pointless. And I've always said that magic and rare items were a great thing in Diablo 2, and the reason why is they actually have a purpose at the end game. When I'm going to use my obols, I do not want rare or magic items, right? Even getting a legendary is pretty useless once you're at the end game, unless it's a greater affix one. Most people kind of see this as kind of junk, and this is why we kind of say we want a loot filter. But as far as it goes, maybe through the progression, I'm going to at least try it out and I'll let you guys know how it goes. But because these are still unusable at the end game, rare and magic items are still pointless because, again, past day 1, they're still going to be useless. So let me know, guys, how you feel about that. Do you guys want the rare and magic items to be good? I think that they have some sort of purpose in any action RPG, makes it feel like the game understands, you know, what the purpose of like a blue or a rare item is at World Tier 4. Otherwise, just literally delete them out of the game if they can never be useful, right? Maybe they can make some sort of special unique that is all about blue or rare items. That'd be kind of cool too. But anyways, legendaries are still the best. That's the bottom line here. Next up, state of the game for the tormented progression over here. They're talking about kind of how it works in terms of like getting to Torment 4. And they actually said that they kind of want Torment 4 to be like aspirational content, talking about like only 10% of the players to actually play in this area, which is really weird because there's like less than 5% of people even that finish the campaign. So like, I don't actually know what this number is internally, but it has to be way less than 5% if people don't even complete the campaign. How are they getting to the end game, right? I remember I showed off that in like a YouTube short and TikTok, and yeah, there's less than 5% of people that even complete the campaign boss. So again, them saying they want 10%, which should mean that it should be easier, not more difficult. But anyways, just mentioning some stats here so you guys can get an idea. But they are also adjusting Torment 1, and now it starts at Pit 10, and then Torment and Pit scaling is increased by 20%. Torment 4 will be equivalent to Season 7 Pit Tier 76. So that is a pretty big jump over there, and then the scaling also got increased. So basically they said you ain't doing Pit 150. That was actually quoted by Colin. I'll get the actual quote. So no longer is that going to be something that I guess we can actually do. Who knows, maybe someone's going to come out with an OP build. If there is, I'll drop a gameplay for it, right? Anyways, on top of that, there is new layer boss updates here. So there's going to be new bosses, which we've talked about, and I'll show you guys other things regarding screenshots and stuff of them. There's going to be new mechanics, some extra quality of life, and revamped materials loop. Now, I'm going to mention something that some people will be very concerned about. This is a mega nerf to group play specifically for sharing boss materials. Everyone must use their own materials to open up a chest at the very end. You can do the bosses now for free, but if you want the actual loot, you cannot get the boss loot unless you put in basically your coins. You have to put in your boss materials. So this way, I like it in a sense because you cannot have any leechers. It's kind of a big problem, specifically when you use the party finder and you find other people that want to do the boss, and then they're like, bring materials, and then they themselves don't have materials, right? It's a really annoying thing. But now they can no longer leech off of you, which is a good thing. But like, it kind of sucks because like, what I usually do is I'm like, hey, does anyone need to do any of the tormented bosses? Come join my lobby. I have hundreds of materials because I play this game 30 hours a day, and I can invite you guys. So that kind of sucks. As long as we can trade them though, that's okay. But still, I feel like the other system was kind of better. I mean, we'll have to wait and see kind of how it feels. But let me know, guys, how you feel about that. Basically, everyone has to put in their own material in order to get the rewards. But this is one of the new bosses. This is Belial. He's from actually Diablo 3, but it's not like they copy and pasted him. He looks nothing like it. I actually like the way he looks in Diablo 4 way better. There's actually going to be two versions of him. There's going to be his like tiny form that you can just fight in the open world that can like spawn in, and then there's going to be like the giant Omega. This is the new Omega boss fight, which is cool. I like that they're adding new pinnacle bosses. Hopefully it is going to be really hard. And the reason why I want it to be really hard, because honestly, let's be honest, most of the tormented bosses, I've made so many video guides of just slapping the boss once and it's just dead. And it kind of feels awkward because like this is supposed to be like your end game most challenging thing. But at the same time, I mean, if you're playing an OP build, at some point you need to make sure that you let the characters feel powerful. This is another one of the newer bosses here, and this is another newer boss. I know some of these technically are from the campaign, however, they're not going to be copy and pasted. Again, these are basically brand new mechanics. You're going to have to hopefully learn the mechanics, because like Gregor is actually a pretty cool boss fight, but the problem is that like you really probably didn't notice that he has cool mechanics because you just touch him once and you hit for billions and trillions of damage, right? But they're actually doing something different. So here's kind of like their design here as far as like the layer bosses, and I'll show you guys another picture later. But basically, you get the hearts, you fight Varshan, then you can get the Shard of Agony, then you can do Duriel, and then it says any initiate or greater layer boss, and then you get to do Belial. There's also a surprise ambush, and the exalted boss. This is like the highest level of new bosses, because you know how like we have Varshan as like the entry one, right? And then once we get the Varshan and Gregor materials, we can then do Duriel, right? Or you do Beast and Ice, Lord Zir, you get Andariel mats. Or if you do Urivar, which is one of the newer ones, you get the Hatred Hearts, and then you do the Harbinger of Hatred. But the thing that you're really looking forward to do is Belial, and he's the ultimate, again, Omega Supreme Lord boss, okay? He's the final one. So there is like a new tier to content here. And I think that that's cool. There's also going to be these new dens, and this is something very important to mention. So when you go over here, this is pretty important. It shows that it says it has a chance to drop, but it has that required items of the Abhorrent Hearts. If you do not have these, you can play the boss, but you do not get the rewards. So again, there's a double-edged sword with this in terms of like, before you would just go and fight the boss and one person would put in the materials, right? But how it works is you defeat the boss and at the very end there's a chest. Now on specifically Belial's, and everyone has to pay for their own, okay? I don't know if you can trade these brand new Betrayer husks over here, but specifically the important thing to mention with specifically Belial, he's the mega one, you can see where it says this chest contains loot from Andariel, and you can click modify reward, and with him you can get any of the other boss's rewards. So he's kind of the one that I think a lot of people will want to farm, just because, well, one, he's going to be the new boss and people want to explore the new content, but on top of that, this boss can drop loot from Beast and Ice. You can select the one that you want. So if you're really trying to look for maybe a greater affix, Kesemes, or whatever thing that you're going for, let's say a build, you can try to get it. And they said that it was guaranteed at least 1 GA. I honestly think that it should be everything that drops at the hardest boss, right? Because if you look at like the progression, this one is so far down the line. I think every item in here should be GA. Just because it's a GA doesn't mean it's good at all, because you could still get like a, you know, GA Azarath. Like that's not really that exciting for most players, right? So I want to give him some feedback as a Diablo partner that it would make more sense that every single item would be guaranteed at least 1 GA, because again, it doesn't even mean that the item's good. It maybe hits the special unique power is still like garbage roll, right? And I think that at least that way, if someone's trying to farm something, they have like a good way that like, okay, now I get to, you know, put my thing in the slot machine. I'm at least somewhat excited. Not like, oh, a bunch of trash, one unique that has a GA. And I think that that is kind of an area where you can really incentivize players to really be excited about the new forms of content here. But on top of that, these are these new incursions over here. So it's a fast-paced boss rush style event. So looking at how this is supposed to be designed with these new boss powers, because this is how you're going to be acquiring these new powers, is by fighting these bosses. And so there's going to be some random bosses that can come out, and again, Belial can come out. You basically are just killing bosses. So getting anything that has to do with probably like elite damage will probably be something good to go ahead and invest into for the build. But they mentioned all these powers, right? So how do we get these powers? So how does it work too? And even though it says there's 24 powers, there's actually 48, and I'll explain why. So there's these brand new boss powers. Each power has basically 2 different abilities to it, and you have to select which one you want. So just like the Witchcraft powers, you know how we can have like the major, the unique one, right? And then we have all of the smaller powers. In the new season, for season 8, you get one that's activated as your main, and it's going to do that boss's ability. This one over here says the Wandering Death's chest beam. So you get to legitimately shoot out the boss's chest beam. Now that one is considered the main, which is over here. Now all these 3 smaller ones would be the modifier. So the modifier says your main boss power instantly executes non-boss enemies hit with less than 24% life, and then when you execute enemy, you gain a bunch of resource, and then it has like next rank. So you can see it's very similar to the Witchcraft powers, which I think were pretty much one of the coolest things. Witchcraft in season 2, this is awesome. I like this. So basically we have 48 brand new powers, and the thing that I'm actually really excited about is they said that these are going to be scaling with Paragon, so they're not going to be falling off. Fingers crossed that we can just make a build that's based off of this. Now I want to also give them some feedback that it may be in their best interest to make these count as a core skill, as a mastery skill, as a pyro. Maybe have it tag all the tags. I mean, it might be kind of too good at some point, but the reason why I'm mentioning this is because there are so many classes and so many glyphs that only speak to frost skills, pyromancy, you know, summons, these sort of things. And if these want to, like, they want these to be powerful, and I think that that's great, because like if I play the season of like boss powers, right, and I get super excited, I get Lilith's Bloodwave, and it works in like, you know, Torment 1 and then 2, 3, and then I go to the pit, and I go to pit like, you know, 60, 65, right, because I want to level up my glyphs, and it does 0 damage. You've kind of lost players at that point of, you know, feeling that like they got something cool to play around with. So maybe that these could count as agility. They just count as all tags, right? Because if there's no multiplier on all these other things, then these are just going to fall completely flat, right? But just going over some quick notes that I was taking over here. So when is season 8 going to be starting for the PTR? So it's going to be starting very soon. It's March 11th to the 18th, so lock in your schedules over there. And then I already mentioned that legendary loot is getting nerfed. This is the kind of the most important things. Yeah, I already mentioned this. And then they said, I don't believe any of you will reach it, and this is Colin talking about Pit 150. So if Pit 150 is unchewable, I think that that's fine. They want to make it so, like, I guess no one can complete it, so there's always something to go ahead and shoot for. And then, yeah, I mentioned that this is like kind of like the most important things and kind of going over the highlights. Now, I didn't cover this in this video, but all the, or in like a picture, a screenshot here, but I want to cover this in a separate video talking about all of the builds. I want to make a separate video going over the buffs and the nerfs that are coming. So if you're brand new here and you want to see that, I'm going to separate them because some people just want to see one class. I totally get that. So I'm going to have timestamps for all of that, and I'll be uploading that one very soon. But yeah, that's basically the summary of the 2-hour thing, with excluding again the buffs and the nerfs to each class. I'm going to include that in the separate one, so this video is not an hour long. But anyways, let me know, guys, what you think of it. Do you guys like that there's going to be this new system for the like boss progression? I think getting new bosses is fantastic. I just really hope that these boss powers are going to be, you know, as powerful at late game, because again, they were showing off some of the other ones. I want to show you guys a couple other ones, but you can see this is Duriel's burrow. So if you guys remember Duriel, that's the boss that goes under the ground, right? And he's going to show you the ability in just a second. So you can go underground just like Duriel and pop up and do a bunch of damage. And that's part of, you know, there's going to be a bunch of these boss, you know, abilities. I'm most excited about this. And I think this is looking to be one of the coolest seasons ever if they can land the mark on making specifically all of those boss skills fun to play with, because then I can play any build and I have this like super awesome boss thing to look forward to, even if I don't like the build of the class. Like I don't like the core skill, I don't like the mastery skill or whatever. I get to just play like bosses, and then I get to play the class that maybe has good utility or has good mobility, or I just like the way the character looks, you know. That could be something to get excited about. But yeah, you also have like the Urvar's lobbed bombs over here, and if you want to acquire these, by the way, in order to acquire these, you are going to be just defeating the bosses. It's pretty self-explanatory, and then I'm guessing you just do the mechanic, just similar to the previous season. But I'm honestly looking really forward to it. You guys let me know, what are your thoughts on it? Are you like super excited? I am personally, like, I'm excited because the boss powers is like the coolest idea. You kill the boss and you get to take its power, kind of like Mega Man. Anyways, that's gonna wrap things up. If you guys enjoyed it, drop a like on it. If you're new here, hit subscribe, turn the bell if you guys want to see the patch notes for the buffs and the nerfs for all the classes, which are gonna be dropping real soon. Anyway, take care, have a good one, and I'll see you guys very soon on Season 8. I'm excited.